first Communication Across the Curriculum, or CAC, presentation and discussion of the semester. And we welcome today Clark Friesen from Communication. Clark is our former colleague here at the college, now teaches at Tomball.
That's right.
And he has provided us with a bibliography which will be on the CAC website.
Yes.
And anything else that you decide to send us, we'll put up there.
Right,
Your video.
a secondary resource I'll give you by email and on the CAC website will be a list of free apps that can go on Android or iPhones, as well as some channels on YouTube. Channels on YouTube that you can go to for 360 content, okay, so that you can be looking at the same channels that I use that are updating with new content all the time, okay? So yes, I'm in communication studies at Tomball. One of the things that I do there is experiential learning. I'm always looking for ways in which my students can learn, not just by hearing about it or reading it in the text, but by doing it and putting themselves in a situation. And we tend to emphasize experience more than ever these days, and it's hard when you have communication or when you have students at the community college who may not be able to go on an international study excursion. They may not have ever even been outside of the state of Texas. Their experience may be limited, and they're not really sure what they're going to do with their lives. About a year ago, I started hearing lots and lots about virtual reality, and it started to increase, and I learned about Google Cardboard, which is purchased from Google, it says it on the outside, for about $15. That's how they were marketed, about $15. I bought myself a pair of them, 2 for $25, and so they were $12.50. Well, shortly after I bought them, Google came out with their own phone called the Pixel, and a virtual reality headset for that phone for about $80, and these dropped to less than $12.50. And in fact, just the other day when I was doing this talk for another group, somebody looked it up while I was talking and found it for $3 on like Amazon or eBay. I'm not sure which one he was on, but $3. So they're very cheap. They're literally made of cardboard. And what I want to do today is tell you about how the future has arrived for us then, right? Virtual reality used to be something that we imagined, or was part of science fiction, but now here we are, and it has made a difference for us. So Marshall McLuhan, I always love the quote about the global village, right? But here, this quote is a great one, that we become what we behold. We shape our tools, and then the tools shape us. So here we have a tool shaped out of cardboard. Can it make a difference? I like Jimi Hendrix maybe a little bit better. Are you experienced? Right? So hopefully the virtual reality is going to create some effective experience for you. And this is something you can adopt right now in your classes. So I'm going to talk about what virtual reality is. I'm going to give you an idea of its growing influence, and we're going to talk about how it's used in higher education these days, and then you're going to get some hands-on today. You're going to certainly try out a few of these. If you suffer from vertigo or if you get migraines a lot, this is something that you may find challenging at times. So like they used to say at the IMAX theater when you first went. Do y'all remember going to the IMAX when it first opened? They hired a person to come into the theater, and they would tell you, if you get sick, right, this sometimes causes motion sickness, just close your eyes and the feeling will pass momentarily, right? And that's precisely what happens here. Just set it down if it starts to make you feel bad. The way I use this in my classes is that it is a part of what I do, but it is not, the course isn't reliant on this. Does that make sense? All right. So again, in '83, there was this movie called Brainstorm, which starred one of my favorite actresses, Natalie Wood, and Christopher Walken, who is weird in every show he's in. And in this one, they were recording people's thoughts and emotions in a reel-to-reel tape, and then you would wear this super headset, and it would allow you to see what they saw and feel what they felt. And that was their idea of virtual reality in that film. Over the summer, our family listened to a book that was called Ready Player One, and it's all about the future and how people are being educated fully online through virtual reality. And it's being made into a film for next year, directed by Steven Spielberg. So you know it's got to be good because Spielberg. No, but you get the idea that it has transcended all those years, right? And now it's becoming more real.
They're completely using virtual headsets to be after school.
He has a headset and a pair of gloves that are given out by the school, just like laptops now. And he's constantly in class, and he never actually is in the same room with his classmates or teacher. In fact, he lives in a trailer, and no one knows where he is during the day when he's at school. So virtual reality is growing in its influence. Many companies now are employing it in their hiring, their training, in their product development and sales. There's just so much going on. Walmart, UPS is training its drivers. Volkswagen, the U.S. military, and law enforcement are using it for training purposes. NCAA, the NFL is using it for their referees, which they kind of need if you've seen some of the games, and even more incorporating it into training. Health professions, here at the community college, we're now starting to focus on a 4-year degree, but all of us have students in health professions, and it's being used for pain treatment. It's being used for nurses to find themselves in different situations and what would they do. They're being observed for stroke care, for elder care, surgical prep. There's just so many different uses for healthcare these days, both in terms of these Google Cardboards and also in the more expensive devices like HTC Vive and Oculus Rift. In fact, in Cyprus here in town, a dentist's office was using it to distract kids who were going to be getting their teeth worked on. That was allowing them to get distracted and not be worried about being in the dentist chair. Now in Miami, they were using it for preparing to do some surgery on an infant, and so the surgeons were looking through the Google Cardboard at the kind of surgery that they would do as a way of preparing before they went to the real patient. Okay, and they successfully were able to execute the surgery. So it treats PTSD. Of course, that's a growing trend and issue amongst our students, and VR can be used for things like relaxation, for instance, and putting in and desensitizing in some ways. There's a lot of different ways that that's being approached and studied. Consumers at IKEA and Amazon and others can shop from the comfort of their home and see what you're doing. In fact, real estate is using it so you can see different properties without having to travel around to those properties. You can just go through the room and then click and go to the next room and look through that. And all it takes is somebody on the other end with a 360 camera to take those videos and store them, and then any customers or clients can look at it. HR is using it for hiring and onboarding. In fact, one of the tools that I use for my class is an app called Virtual Speech. It's free. It was developed in England. And one of the functions of it is an interview training tool where you pick which company you want to go for. They have a series of sample companies. It says, what job do you want to go for? And you click on that. And then you're seated in front of a panel of interviewers, right? And they start asking you questions, and you respond to the questions. It hears you responding and counts up. There's a clock in front of you. It counts up how long it takes you to answer the questions. And you practice making eye contact with the interviewers, and you practice how long your answers take, and so on. So it's a really interesting aspect of this communication app that's free for students to use. So AR and VR, AR stands for augmented reality. But AR and VR together are probably going to be $215 billion in the next few years. In fact, if you are not liking the income you're making with education, start a VR company and your value will automatically be about $5 or $6 million. Hi, come on in. Good to see you. $700 million in education just by 2020. $700 million in education VR. So this is not something that is small or getting smaller. It's getting bigger all the time. So certainly for workforce and academic programs then, right? Training for different industries. I'll get this handed around. for our nursing programs, health professions, those kinds of things. For academic programs, you're going to see a lot of applications that will fit in with a number of different disciplines. Students are developing apps to benefit other students, or schools are to develop their own students. We're using VR to combat community needs. So as we see something, we just apply that technology to the problem itself. There's research into how students use VR, campus tours. So instead of the trip that everybody takes, the road trip, now you just pick the virtual reality tour and decide which one looks good to you before you decide which one you really want to go to. And then civic engagement training. There are a number of virtual reality apps and video content that allows you to start thinking about your role in the community and the political realities that students face and community members face, and put students in an experience that they would not have gotten otherwise. And that's really the thing about this. It's so exciting to know that with a piece of cardboard less than $5 in cost, students bring the most expensive piece of equipment, don't they? Everybody's got, no matter where they come from, $500, $600, $700, and now with iPhone X, $1,000. Is that right? They'll all have one in their pockets, and every new phone is built for VR now. So this is not something where fewer people will have the ability. Everyone has the ability, and now it's just a matter of you using this as part of what you do to teach. So let's go on the moon, shall we? I want you, if you have the YouTube app on your phone, okay, if you have the YouTube app, then what you want to do is look up Cool VR Walk on the Moon with NASA. Now, here's how it works. When you pick up a video from this, if it's a 360 video, let's set this down. If it's a 360 video, in the corner there will be a little Google Cardboard, right, like that. You want to pause your video.
I did.
Okay. Touch this image in the corner, and it will make your image into a stereoscope. Okay? And when it's stereoscopic, what will happen is your phone then can be placed inside of the cardboard device. Now, if Lone Star will quit kicking me out of the... And so what happens is...
Pull up the YouTube app, put in Cool VR Walk.
Are you getting logged in, or are you losing your connection?
I'm losing my connection.
Okay.
Literally.
You haven't
Okay.
started it yet. Oh. Started.
So what happens is when you put it in the stereoscope, then your phone can fit right inside here, okay? And the screen faces the lenses. You close the... You're still downloading? That's fine. And it seems like Wi-Fi in here is not very strong.
No,
Yes.
kicking me out.
So once that's on there and in stereoscope, then you look through the lens. The shroud on the cardboard gives you the immersive effect. What gives an additional immersive effect is headphones, okay? Because your ears help with your balance, right? And it affects your balance. So with 360 video, you can't walk around, okay? You can only view, but it's 360 degrees. So you can look up and down and behind you and around, and away you go.
Is this supposed to be the moon?
It does go to the moon. What it says on the title screen, it says 360 view of the moon.
It's like this is a roller coaster.
Yes. Let's see if it'll come back to this. Hold on one moment. Okay.
From the USA Today Network and YouTube, it's virtually
Now, Ron, I'm going to have you share, okay? So you watch a little bit and then share.
I have migraines.
Now I'm going to walk around, and I'll walk around and kind of help as we get it hooked up here. This is the video that I use to get groups oriented and situated, okay? That's it? You don't have to sign in. Okay, now go ahead and use your search. And then type in Cool VR Walk on the Moon right at the top there.
Just right. Oh, sorry. It's just this virtually.
There you go. And it should have this image.
Turn and look in your.
Look all around.
You can look up. You can look.
So there's a roller coaster first, then you go to the moon, and then you go to Yosemite. Have you seen it okay?
Oh yeah.
Okay, keep looking around.
If I can get the Wi-Fi,
Okay, is that it? Then this.
Cardboard button.
There, and you say continue. Okay, continue. There you go. Turn it sideways. And where's your viewer? Okay, so it helps if it's out of the case, okay, because the fatter the case, the harder it is for this to close. If you can get it out of there. Great. Just make sure it's still in. You took it out. So, there. Stick.
Okay, now how do I get it in?
All right, so this line here matches with that notch there,
Okay.
and you have to have sound, but there you go.
So we got to turn around.
You do. Turn around. Look up and look down. Now again, if it starts to really hurt you, you need to put it down. I don't want anybody to get a headache or get overwhelmed.
I was thinking it would do it without.
Yes, it does. I love that, right? What is your question?
How does our movement translate into the thing moving around, the visual?
Oh, because it's a 360 camera, it allows you to have an image. The camera films from all those. So you look around. Yes.
Everything is turning in there.
And not all student phones have a gyroscope, so they can't use this if they don't, right? So like some older LG phones, some older Samsung phones, but it's like 1 or 2 students in any class, okay? Yeah, and you just have them share.
Heck, they usually have newer phones than I do.
Seems like it's a lot of pixelated.
It's possible that the signal is causing that. Does that make sense? Sometimes the transition is a pixelated image, so you'll switch to the moon. Is it going okay, or is it kind of stuck?
No, it's working.
Okay.
You can go all the way around. You can spin your chair around. Yeah, I don't want to go like super fast. I guess it can
That IMAX theater or remember those old three-dimensional movies? Yes.
When you get
Happening, the doors come towards you.
when you get to the moon, those are photographs that were taken on the last moon landing and stitched together to create the landscape. Then they superimpose video from the moon landing onto that image and put facts above the video.
Saw those up there.
Right. So facts above the video. So that's another way that they use virtual reality, is to superimpose information over the 360 image. And then the narration comes over the top. So be sure to turn around until you can see the Earth, right? Because that's one of the most impressive things about being on the moon, is being able to look back and see the Earth in the sky, right? And at one point you can.
Now we're Yosemite.
And you have to have a flat floor. One of the rooms that I use is a theater-style classroom, and I can't have people standing on a theater-style classroom losing their balance and then tumbling over. So we try to do it in flat spaces now.
He's learned from experience.
Yes, that's the idea, experiential learning.
You can do the geometry.
Are you excited about the geometry one? Okay, well, we will try to get to that one. I want to have everybody have a chance to see Yosemite because it's one of my favorite places. Yosemite's at the end. Let it keep going to Yosemite.
It's really cool.
Okay. It quit at the moon?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm not sure if the signal is just weak in this room or how that's going.
We can always go back. Can we take these?
I'm afraid not. But for $3, you may have your own sent to you.
Oh. Can I order it online?
Yes, you may. That's how I got mine, was I ordered them straight from Google, but somebody else looked it up online the other day. I think it was from Amazon, and they got it from...
$3, you won't do this.
I will not take $3 for these. They were $12.50 a piece, so sorry. That's right, and they'll be to you by the end of the weekend, I'm sure. They'll probably drop it off by drone.
On Friday, since she stopped and got one of the plastic ones at Walmart for $5 on the way home.
Yeah, there are some plastic forms, and we'll talk about those too. Is Ken Burns showing you? That's Ken Burns narrating.
This is just at Yosemite.
Yeah. So you get to look up at El Capitan. You get to see the green of the valley.
You get with the migraines, you get that nauseous feeling.
Yes.
With it, so so I'm.
Yes, I totally get it. And I would not want to have that affect you. All right, have we come to the end of that? Now, that gives you a little bit of a sense. If you rode the roller coaster, I'll bet, it kind of disoriented you a little bit because of the speed and that's the immersive effect that's going on. And what's really valuable about this experience is how you're transported there. Your brain thinks you're there. And you say, well, why can't we just use a 360 video and hold my phone up and I don't need this thing? And that's because the immersive effect isn't the same. And so you don't get transported. Even with this little piece of cardboard, you get transported. And if you use your headphones, again, that even creates more of an immersive effect. All right, so I think my video has switched to the next one. It's jumping ahead of me. Yes, ma'am.
Classroom, you teach you to transport.
You do. It's true. All right, so we're going to pause that for just a moment. I'll bring you back to you. So let's see what's next. All right, Karen is very excited about this. If you all have paid attention here in your in-service this week, you probably were told about New York Times content being available for faculty and students. And you wonder, so what? What kid wants to read New York Times? That's okay. One of the things that they're doing now is they're developing a daily 360-degree video that they put on their website. And if you go to YouTube and you look up their channel on YouTube, they have a whole set of videos that are called 360. And it has a little image in the corner that says 360 degrees. So what I want you to do is to go on to your YouTube app YouTube still, right? And look up Bending the Rules of Geometry. And when you look up Bending the Rules of Geometry, this is going to put you in a virtual environment. The definition of virtual reality is it's an environment that's created by the computer and you are inserted within it. Augmented reality places something computer generated on the actual environment. You're looking through your camera at the ground and you see something there. That's not the same thing, okay? 360 video then technically isn't virtual reality, but this one is. So let me see if I can get that one up for you here. It's right there.
Everything looks about normal. The cells above.
Let's go there. Let's go there.
Here we are in a very unusual space with 6 main windows into neighboring cells. If you look straight up or straight down, everything looks about normal. The cells above and below.
There you are.
Just like the one.
It does. It's incredible.
And this is not a simplistic kind of geometric video. This is teaching you some specific concepts. Now I'm wishing I wasn't loaning my phone out so I could take pictures of you all using this.
I'd like to have a picture like that. I can do that. Could you do it on my phone?
I think so. Go ahead. It's going to be you. It's your phone. You're going to be on it. Like that. That's right. It's amazing.
Now, will I have the same issue with this one that I had with the other?
Probably so.
But it
I'll-
might actually be worse.
Oh, what's your name, man?
Even I'm beginning to feel a little.
JR, I'm going to tell you. There are some that are stationary things that you're in and you just look around. I should think that would be less traumatic visually than one. Yeah, than one that is animated and moving around for you, like the roller coaster. I think would just throw you
I think
out.
that's what made me nauseous, because I think my brain thought I was literally going down and around.
And this is why it's such a good starting video, because I find out real quick who can't really do this. Okay, so it's an intro. And I found out.
That was the good one, because I
Yeah.
was like, no.
I'll see if I can't demo a couple that might be more your speed. Okay.
So something like this, is it produced by a team of scientists and graphic designers and artists?
Actually, this kind of thing is being produced by students at Texas A&M right now in the visualization department. I have one just a little bit that's all about looking at South Padre Island through an impressionistic lens, and they're using like Photoshop and video editing equipment. They take Google Cardboards and print pretty skins on the outside so people are willing to try it, and they make their own video. Students are making it. So it's not something that is necessarily only super tech people can do. I think that we could be doing that here if only we would invest the time and effort to it. Okay, it's what you want the video to show. And so, for instance, we could have a 360-degree camera and be putting it into events. So last year in the fall, we had our first poetry slam for Free Speech Week at Tomball. I took my iPhone, used Google Cardboard Camera, which is an app, a free app, and I stood in the middle of that event and just went like this and took a 360-degree panorama, which captured sound, which captured one of the performers and the audience. And so anybody who wants to know what a poetry slam looks like and sounds like, you can stand there and with one of these, view that space. So we could have a 360-degree camera that does a better job, captures video, right? And walk through during one of our involvement fairs, or walk through when we're doing one of our training exercises or in a laboratory. So, what's going on? Why are you signaling me?
Do you have you tried different viewers, or is this the only one?
I have tried, yes. There are some viewers that have straps, right? But this is the cheapest one. And for me, as a professor at a community college, I want a whole class to experience the same thing at the same time. With an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive, you're talking about $1,000 to get in the door. And that's one person at a time. HTC Vive, you can actually buy a business package of it, and it will be 10 people at a time. But that's still so much expense for just 10 people at a time. With a room, with this set of 20 I bought, I spent $200, and that's it. Everybody else brings the most expensive piece of equipment into the room with them, and all I have to do is explain and get them started. And it's only one part of my class, right? Any of these videos may be 5-10 minutes max. And then the rest of my lecture is the same. But now they go home and you ask anybody in a classroom, you say, how many of you have heard of virtual reality? They all raise their hand. How many of you have tried it? One person. So they're going to get an experience they didn't even know their phone could do. And they're going to get an experience that they're not getting in any other classroom. And they're going to see it in a different way, right? Which is the whole idea of the experiential learning. All right, can I have that for a second? Because I don't want it to go on to the next video and be distracting again for us.
So I went shopping and I found some other models that look like this by different vendors.
Yes, sir.
That maybe are $7 or $8.
Right.
And then this one, the best price I found was, I only found one price, and it was $15.
Sure, that was the original price for these. 2 for $25, right? But the main thing that you have to have is a button. The button allows for interactivity in the video. So for instance, Google has a free app called Google Arts and Culture. In the Google Arts and Culture app, what you have is a series of virtual travel experiences. So what do you got there? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so Google Arts and Culture has some 360-degree field trips, and you can go to them. And within the field trip, when you go to St. Mark's Square, there's an information button over here. Well, you put your cursor on that and click the button, and information pops up, right? Or
Monticello.
Yeah, Monticello was looking at the other day, and so I'm inside of Jefferson's library, and it says, what about this clock, or what about these books, or what about this over here? You can go and look at it and click it and get additional information. But without the button, you can't do that.
That button clicks on your phone. Don't ask us how.
I know how. This part here is controlled by it. So when you push the button, it taps your screen and tells it that you want to talk to that part, or you want to pause the video or fast forward. It's right there. It is the simplest of things. By the way, the plans for these are on Google's website. Get a 12-pack carton from Coke and get a couple of lenses, and you can make your own. I know. In our society, that's kind of the way it is these days. You know, just order it, $3, right?
You ordered 20 of them, yeah.
Why is he finding it for 15?
So that was, I guess, the question I was getting to.
Yes.
Could you send us the link where the $3 for $3?
I will look for the link. This was in a faculty group, and one of the other members found it during the thing, but I didn't actually get the link from him. I just used them as a proof to say, inexpensively, these can be had. What if a student can only buy them for $15? What percentage of your textbook is this? It's a tiny percentage, isn't it? Right, compared to your textbook. So they can afford one of these as part of their syllabus.
You put it in the syllabus.
Yes, all of my classes have this either as an option or a requirement. My online class is required to have this because it's got the public speaking training already in there that I can use.
It comes with the
Right?
His public speaking textbook.
It doesn't come with a viewer.
I thought you said it
No, it doesn't come with a viewer.
has the videos and they have to use
It doesn't even have 360 videos associated with the textbook. I found the apps, I found the content, and I associate it with the content that I'm using, but they have no idea about this. I don't think there's a textbook out there that does this. Hint, hint, hint. You could write one.
I was going to say that
Yeah.
no matter how cheaper or more expensive than a textbook is, the students will have more fun with this rather than...
Sure, sure. And that's engagement, right? That's engagement.
They can practice. They have an audience in front of them, and the audience responds to them, looking at them and doing things. Really, I mean, there's so many things you can do.
So I want to move on to this one that I added in here because, again, sometimes the movement of these is a little bit, and this slideshow, again, is going to be on CAC and can be emailed to you in case you don't want to take pictures.
Oh, yeah, if you can, because it gets on CAC a little, it takes a little bit of time.
So what this is by National Geographic. I'm not picking sites that have shoddy content, right? I'm picking National Geographic here. And what they're doing is they're talking about giant sequoias, which who couldn't love that, right? And you go up into the canopy. You go up into the trees and you get to learn about them. And I think that for a class that is, I think the Wi-Fi is shut off on this one. Let's see if I can get it back. I think that for a class that is studying environmental concerns, yeah, see, it kicked it out. Then this might be a great opportunity for them. Yeah, let's go back and try it again.
How do you search for this? National Geographic?
See at the top, 360 degree giant sequoias.
Sequoias, and it comes out 360 giant sequoias.
Here it comes. Slow but sure.
I must be on the right spot. I'm responding.
Good. I'll move over closer to you.
Change our climate so much, we just don't really know how they're going to deal with climate change.
In order to understand how those changes are affecting these trees,
There we go. Come on.
get samples, measure the conditions, and
There may be a little ad at the beginning of some of these videos.
better picture of how
There's an ad. Yeah, some of them have an ad.
I'm still kind of queasy, but I'd like to try this.
Yeah, I think this one might be a little more your speed. Okay?
Can I just put it back in there?
I'm going to, it's trying to find the signal. The room is iffy. And some classrooms are iffy. So you may need to move into a more centralized space, which is okay. Take them into your quad or commons area.
Is there a list of all the videos that are available?
Okay. There actually is a searchable database, I think, for virtual content, but I don't know that it will separate from Cardboards to Oculus to Vive, right? Now, what I'm going to provide for this group is I'm going to provide you a list of free apps and provide you with the channels that I use for this 360 content so that you can go directly to it, okay? So you'll be able to find the sources that I use, and that'll get you directly to things that can be used with these devices. Again, this is the excitement that I have about this. Every student in the class gets the experience at the same time. I don't have to have them do it one at a time. If anything, the only thing I'm having trouble with is the Wi-Fi signal, right? Or the fact that their phone doesn't have a gyroscope. We can work around that, right? In most cases.
So how do you search for this? The thing that is compatible with this?
Well, on YouTube, what I do, well, there's a couple of things. Yeah, I'm going to wait a second because it's just not doing. In order to find the content, there's a couple of things I do. One is I have a website that I use that aggregates news articles, and I can separate it out in terms of current events or virtual reality or higher education, things like that. And so I have one that's just for virtual reality. And every day it updates new articles about all virtual reality things. Well, in amongst those are references to new 360 experiences, and I check those out. And Karen can vouch for me. I have one of these sitting on the coffee table, and if I come across it, I'm sitting there looking it up to see if it's going to be useful for school. I also, once I start finding sources that are continually making them, like New York Times, like USA Today, like ABC News, or apps that I use, then I just keep checking back, and it keeps re-upping new things. So 360 every day, right, for New York Times, or Within is one that is producing more longer form, like 9 or 10 minute ones. Those are more valuable for things like building empathy, which, if you've been instructed about emotional intelligence, empathy is a skill that our students all need. But how do they build it in? Well, this is the story of a 12-year-old girl from Syria who has been living for a couple of years in a Jordanian refugee camp. Now, this video is for building empathy, because you ask your students, what's it like to be a refugee? Let's just think about how long that civil war has gone on. What would it be like to be a 12-year-old refugee girl? Because our news is full of people who are afraid of refugees, and we don't want to let them in, and what if they're terrorists, and so on and so forth. Well, what's it like to live that life? Can we just know that? And so what they did was they went to this camp with a 360-degree camera, and they followed this girl around, and then they had her narrate her experience. Okay? This video has raised $1 billion in support for refugee programs. Billion with a B. And so it's like 9 or 10 minutes. But you do a little preflection at the beginning, right? What do you think it's going to be like? You have them watch it, and then you reflect out of it, right? What is it that you got from this? What did you notice? How is that different from your own experience? How is it different from what you thought it was going to be? And that's the experience that we're trying to go for, right?
You have to put 360 in front of that.
In front of this? No, Clouds Over Sidra is the title.
Okay. And then my second question, I hate to interrupt.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You probably already said this, but what is the biology? Did you explain it as to why with my migraine thinks I'm literally in those trees, or that I'm literally...
Yes, it's the immersion factor, and I can give you a much more detailed expression, but that's okay. That's Karen's ringtone on my phone too. Somebody's looking for you. Basically, your brain gets tricked in terms of the motion factor, right? It gets tricked through immersion.
It thought that, but if I just sat still, it wouldn't think that I was in.
It's your visual field.
You can be sitting still.
It's your visual field.
You can still have that.
Right.
If your brain gets
I'm really
tricked
upset
enough
about
to
this.
think that it's real, you can get nauseous sitting still.
Yeah.
Watching a roller coaster.
Yeah, and I can send you some of the research that talks about that. But that's the part that they're hoping will really work with virtual reality, is the idea of getting people's bodies to think that they're in this particular location. Okay, let's see if I can get it to work in this corner. Please. There we go. Clouds Over Sidra. If you'd like to go and look at that, that would be great, because I think you should see that.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Hold on.
An app called Cardboard?
Yes, Cardboard, Google Cardboard itself is their trainer app. It's kind of like Solitaire for VR. You know how every computer comes with Solitaire? Yeah. So you can learn how to use it? Yeah. This is pretty much what Google Cardboard's app is for the Cardboard. It's a couple of games, it's got a thing to scare you, a couple of jump scares in this thing. It's got a thing where you can plant flowers with the little button and try it out.
You don't need it in order.
Oh no. It is simply a trainer to go with this particular device.
Nice.
That's all.
It's fun, it's got some neat little things.
Clark.
Yes, sir.
What do you think those writings do not become single? They go over each other. You see, if you look at these, is it my eyes? You see the writings?
Oh, you have on your phone or this phone some captioning, which I have not seen a phone do, but I'm sure you can turn the captioning off from your YouTube, for instance, and get to what you need to.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that.
It's interesting that it does that.
It doesn't normally do that. I watch videos.
Right. But that's what's happening there is the captioning. All right. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try the old IT effort of turning it off and turning it back on again. Let's see if we can't fix that.
I had a question about the 360 video.
Certainly.
Like, virtual reality video. If you're using another app, so in YouTube we saw at the bottom where you can click the cardboard symbol and split it.
It automatically goes to a VR. If you're picking like this virtual speech or Jaunt VR, which is one that I really like, it's more cinematic. It comes in the stereoscope already. So when it comes up, it's already there. And many of those have an ability for you to just use your visual field to click on things. So for instance, instead of using the button, all you do is center your visual field on a particular video and it starts playing.
And those are videos that are already set to automatically go. So what about the ones that are like 360 videos that aren't set to like arts and culture? So when you go into
so in arts and culture, you got to kind of find them in the app itself, and it's harder to find them. Google doesn't do a good job on YouTube of separating those out. They want you to have the app and go in there, and then you have to still find them within all the other content that's there. And so not all videos that are on that are necessarily going to be 360, but they're called virtual tours, I think.
You might just have to search for the virtual tours.
Yeah, because and it's a category of virtual tours, and then they have like 400 of those in that app itself.
Versus just the 360 video.
Right. And so it's just a matter of knowing what the content's called, I think, in there. Oh, I didn't want that. I want this.
There was a question. Do you have to have a special kind of earphones?
No. Anything that's going to, yeah.
So it can be Bluetooth,
Okay.
it can be earbuds.
Is there any research that shows how it can stop that effect?
I don't know if you can stop that effect for you. Yeah. I don't know that answer. I'm sure that there might be some training to go with it. Does that make sense? But in this, I think you have to just be careful about what kind of content you consume.
And you can still use it in class and just use the pictures like this as opposed to you yourself.
We walked for days crossing the desert to Jordan.
And you can watch the videos and stuff on your phone.
The week we left,
And there's my solution.
my kite got stuck in a
If you want to hand it to Ron, or if you wanted to just look for a second to see.
What about an anti-nausea medication?
Maybe.
Maybe Lomotil or some kind of anti-nausea medication?
Possibly. Again, here's the thing for educating with this. I don't make my class reliant on it, okay? It is a piece that I can discard if I need to. If I have a student who can't process this for some reason, and I did have an email from a student just yesterday who said this very thing. I've taught like this for 25 years. I don't need this particular thing. It is a piece that can be useful, but not everybody's going to be able to do it. Like, what if they have a phone that doesn't have the gyroscope in it and you can't really process 360 videos? Well, then this is going to be useless to them. But that's a very small number of students, and I can teach around it in the same way that I would teach around any other kind of hiccup or hurdle that might come up. Okay, we'll just teach around it, and I don't need it. It's not essential at this moment.
So, so if a kid has one of those, they could step outside for 5 minutes with somebody else's phone and
or they sit next to each other, because again, they're very short videos. Let them run through it twice. That's okay. All right.
Well, see, for me, because I'm looking at the activity of it, there's so many different problems that have been worked, like, for example, outside, looking at, different settings, looking at elliptical type problems. I was thinking that would be great for students to be able to see it from that standpoint. Because I'm already thinking now about, okay, I've got some students, if I were to ask them, they know about virtual reality.
I had a student in the calculus class a couple of years ago that actually was working on it.
Okay, you're going to set up Starry Night on your phone there, Karen?
Yeah, my phone's almost full. I didn't think about making sure it was charged.
That's okay. I didn't realize you were going to have to end up using your phone for extra demo too, so that's great.
Well, actually, I was the one who was using their phone.
No, I know. I understand. If you're going to use this in your class, then you're probably going to remind your students to charge up their phones. I know my teenagers let it run almost down to nothing and then go to school and wonder where they can charge up. Videos suck down the battery, so it's going to go dead. But again, they're very short videos, so usually you can get them in. And if somebody's phone is dead, or if they have a cracked screen or something, that's another thing that sometimes students don't fix, is a cracked screen. That kind of does undo a little bit of what you're trying to do. Just have them share with somebody, or they can come see you in your office hours and look at it then, right? You can have one in your office. Okay, is that another? Did it switch? Okay. So let's try this one, the Van Gogh, okay?
Just for the thrill. One epic adventure.
Maybe it goes without saying, but I think it needs to be said.
Say it.
Do you find that the students using this are more willing to read more and make more informed, deeper speeches?
Well, let me say that my sample size is really small, having started studying this last year and started introducing it little by little last year and then fully introducing it this year. I will say that their excitement level about this and the opportunity to try this is really high. So one of the things that I would say is that with the virtual speech, let's just take that for a second, that if you think about public speaking, it's the scariest thing anybody can imagine. Snakes, enclosed spaces, heights, death, it doesn't matter. Public speaking is always number one. And we always teach our students about speech anxiety. We teach them how to prepare. We give them all the instruction from this and some lecture and maybe some in-class activities. But for the person who is really anxious about speech making, they only really get to hear about it, and then they got to do it for a grade. And that's 10, 15, 20% of their grade. Now, you go from nothing to everything all at once. There's no buffer. But what this does, this app does, is it has several environments: a classroom, a boardroom, a lecture hall, a big giant conference hall, right? A reception hall for a wedding, okay, where everybody's sitting at tables with white lace and everything, and they get to see the audience in front of them, looking at them, turning their head, sipping their coffee, taking notes, whatever it is, and they can look at it, practice their speech verbally, and look around at the audience. Not only that, but they can upload their slides to the website, and their slides will appear in the virtual environment. And with the button, they can click through their slides and practice looking back at the slides and then back at the audience. Not only that, but on another part of it, they can practice reading from a manuscript that they can see. And as they practice reading through it, it gives them a word speaking rate. And it counts how many disfluencies they have. And it gives them guidance as to what to do. Then they can go to another part of the menu, and it gives them tips, video tips on how to become a more effective speaker. Then they can go to another section, and there's a so-so public speaking textbook in there. I wouldn't use that as a substitute textbook, okay, because that seems like an easy freebie, right? But I would not pick a so-so book. It's called Virtual Speech, and it will be on the piece that I'm going to send to Ron, okay, so that you guys can see it. But it has that same section in it where it teaches about how to interview, okay?
If you require speeches for your class, your students can practice.
That's why I'm asking, because I have one presentation and my students get all
Yep.
Yes, and that's why on our campus we have our speech lab, so that students, if they have an assignment like that, they can come in days or a week in advance and practice with the technology. Who has a media card at their house? No one. So they can come in and practice with the media card. They can get instruction on how to put their speeches together, and they can use virtual reality to kind of have that buffer between nothing and everything and see what it's like, practice breathing and calming down in that scary environment, and then come and do it for real. And I'll tell you, I don't have any anecdotal evidence to say they're going to do better or be more excited. But I will tell you that they are thrilled about the opportunity to have this, and that they didn't even know their phones could do it. Think about the research possibilities. Think about the research. Well, yeah.
See that speech then using this?
They don't need the media card. I'm just saying that among the things I require my students to do is to maybe have a visual aid. Well, who's got a media card to practice with? No one. Try Starry Night. Think about Van Gogh painting his painting, Starry Night, right? Think about what he thought this painting represented, and then watch this. Because I'll tell you, this will really throw you. I'm sorry, I'm not thinking that this is going to be for you. It is amazing, but probably...
You can walk around the town and see it.
Here, give it a shot.
What's the app that you're talking about that does the virtual speech?
It's called Virtual Speech. Virtual Speech. It's public speaking VR. It's called Virtual Speech. I'm going to send a list, and you guys can have everything that I have, all the ones that I have, and when you get yours, you can try them all out.
So it's an app rather than...
Yes, sir. Yes, and it's... Some things are... like with the app, I just instruct my students to get the app before they come to class, and then we can have a training session on it in class, and I just bring the class set to class. Okay, so it's an option. They can either get it or not. If they can't afford it, I'll have a class set, but then if they buy one, they can use the app over and over again at home to their heart's content. You see, so I put it in as an option for my face-to-face classes, but for my online classes, I make it a requirement. Isn't this something?
Oh, yeah.
Is this what Van Gogh was thinking?
This is just amazing.
It's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
I think Van Gogh would love this.
He probably would not have left his
He'd say, Clark, that's what I meant.
That's what I meant, right. That's what I meant.
Did they have to write a program to create that digitally and then...
And why is that beyond our students?
Well...
This one particularly was... It shouldn't be, and it is. We have all the pieces.
But in terms of technology, they have to go a long way in order to get there, to be able to program on all these things. And some, they think they can do it without going through the channels.
Right.
All the word that I'm very fond of, the prerequisites of it,
Right. Yeah, you can't go from nothing to making your own 360 video.
But I do have a question.
Here, let me pause it.
Do they have any of these 360s for the oceans?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oceans, bodies, cells,
deep diving.
Yes. Right now, one of the ways that you can get a lot of the 360 content is through environmental concerns. And so, for instance, the bleaching of the coral reefs, there's quite a bit of that. They take the 360 camera right down with them, and they say, here's a healthy reef, and then they swim over and show you the one that's not. Here's another app that I want you to think about, and that is Google Expeditions. Now, Google Expeditions is a preset series of virtual tours in a variety of environments, including inside the human body, okay? And what they do is they say, use your iPad, for instance, and you are the teacher, and you pick the expedition. Everybody in the room has Google Expeditions on their phone, and they have Google Cardboards. So they go in to Google Expeditions, and they're the student. And it says, looking for the teacher. Your teacher appears, they say select that teacher, and they're following you with your iPad. You pick the expedition, and it has 3 or 4 preset lessons about this particular environment. And you pick the lesson and scroll through it, and you see on your iPad screen all their little Google Cardboards looking at the image that you want them to look at. And if you see Johnny going over here and looking at something else, you say, hey, get back on task, right? And then you say, okay, next lesson. And an arrow appears in their visual field that says, look over there. And so they all turn like so, and they get to look at it some more, right? Something else. And there is, you're directing it. There's content that's already there, but of course you could add content to it. But again, the environment is kind of set by Google as they created it, right? But it's still kind of an amazing thing. I was thinking about a service learning project, right, where a faculty member could go to an elementary school and a class set of these, and you could do a lesson about that, and all those kids go home saying, I tried VR today and I learned this and this about the ocean, and right?
One of the very first ones we did a year ago was a nerve. How does the nerves work in your brain and stuff? And so you're in the brain watching them fire and stuff, and you have to click on them to make them pass the message on.
Yes,
so
that's called InMind. That's an app called InMind.
The cursor, click
Yeah, it's an app called InMind.
It's fun. It's just a little gamey kind of thing.
And it's like this 360.
Yes, it's in that same environment using this, and you use the button to click on the synapses that need to be trained.
Teaching that, so at least I can get them to see it on.
Yes.
It is, it's really cool.
Before we leave, I'll show it to you, okay? I know I'm going to run over time here because there's so many things to look at, right? So here's one that is about the Civil War. This one is a short video by PBS about two brothers who are fighting against each other in the Civil War. It has a diary narrative kind of thing that goes along, so it shows them as little kids and then them on the battlefield in their uniforms. I think Craig Livingston might love that, right? And then, goes on to, tell about what it was like for them to fight against each other and the day they died. It's not based on somebody's actual life, but kind of mimicking that. Let's see if it'll click some more. So here is one by the Annenberg School at USC in California, and it goes to the Women's March right after Trump was elected, and you're standing amongst the crowd. You couldn't go to that? That's okay. Let's take a look at the signs that are being used and the things that are being chanted and the kinds of people that were there. Okay, go back. Well, the last one that was there was a study of Cuba because the Obama administration wanted to open up partnership with them, right? Reopen our connection to them. Well, no one knows what Cuba's like. So somebody went there, got a 360 camera and strapped it to the front of one of those 50s cars, and then drove around town in Havana and showed what it was like. Went into one of the restaurants, went into a barbershop, interviewed people, and they were talking about Obama coming to visit and what it was like and what they were expecting and hoping for. And it was done by a news organization. So Huffington Post and USA Today and ABC and all these different ones, they're all creating news content in 360 for people to kind of get an experience that they don't normally get. So the handout that I have is, just to finish up, if you want...
Let me ask a quick question.
Go right ahead.
What you just said about them producing these... for the news, or as part of the news.
Yes.
Isn't that fictionalizing as opposed to journalistic reporting?
Only if they're producing a virtual environment that doesn't exist. If I'm walking down the street and filming an interview with somebody, that's not any more fictionalizing than watching NBC go down to Miami and say, how'd you do in the hurricane? To me, right? It's not really any more fictionalizing than that. Yes, I'm sure they pick and choose which content to use, but to the extent that they're using actual people on the street, I don't see that that's really the case. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. This handout then is some of the research that I've been doing over the last year or so about where VR is being used and some of the different sources that are covering it. So again, wondering how I find out about this, these are some of the sources that are talking about it. On the second page is a worksheet for how to make a lesson for your students that would take no more than about 15 minutes of video time and then discussion time before and after, right? And it talks about the hurricane. Now, here's a Hurricane Harvey specific lesson waiting to happen. You ready? The first video is a video that is a 360 video of people who are living amongst the refineries and chemical plants down there, and they're not rich people. They're people who can't afford to move away. And they're talking about how the chemicals are in their everyday life and their kids are playing in the water full of chemicals, right? Second video is a video that was made by a group that said, based on what we know from Ike and from Hurricane Rita, we know that Houston is a sitting duck for a hurricane category 4 hurricane that will come in and flood the area with surge. And as a result, all these refineries will be at risk. And then the last video is a helicopter ride over the flooded area after Harvey. So you say, look here, we know that people who can't afford to go anywhere else are living amongst those areas. What do you think about that? We knew ahead of time that they were at risk, and what have we done about that? And now we have had this thing just like they said. What do you think about that? And now you can do a preflection based on what your outcomes in the course or your objectives, and a reflection on the end that could be a paper or a poem or a debate in class, right there. And it's only 15 minutes of video. And that's a lesson off of current events with three 360 videos. That's it. And then the last one is a Global Citizen one that again is the same sort of sandwich method, right? Preflection, what do you think is going to happen? Video content, and then what happened after that? And it's a global citizenship one.
So though, I mean, this is just something. So with those things, how is it different from just watching a video that shows the helicopter?
Right. Again, I think it's the immersive content, right? It's the helicopter part is you're getting to be in the helicopter and hear the sounds, but you're looking over the top of it. And I think combined with the other content, I think you get a sense of the reality of it.
So
right.
Actually going, seeing the water and somebody.
You're flying close by, you're seeing all the expanse of it, right? And by doing this, it's like you're sitting in there and seeing the expanse of it, which is different than the camera just panning around. I think you're there. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think we could measure that. I think if you wanted to do a little study, you could divide your class in half and say, watch the video, use the 360, and see what you think, and see if there was any
You
difference.
actually could have them do both and see which one they were more impacted by.
Yeah.
Have them watch the video and then do the immersion.
I think that right now the jury about whether this is going to be high impact is still being measured, but I'm doing these presentations because I want people to know how much content there is, how wide-ranging the content is, and how cheaply we can start incorporating it into the class, and even if you just get a little bit more engagement. $3 or $5 is not bad.
Biology, there's a ton of biology.
Going into the body makes sense to me.
There's a ton of it already.
And like a neuron, if you can go along with it.
But there's more than that. It's like, y'all have what was the program y'all used, Adam?
Yeah.
And they've got so many videos now and things that they're using that VR has already picked up on. Even a year ago at Comic Palooza, they had some stuff that they were using with the Oculus Rift that one of the videos was more like an Incredible Journey as opposed to this. But it's really interesting. In every field, what is your national field? Like ours is the National Communication Association, is our national association. And they haven't started curating it, but I bet they do this year. I bet at our conference in November, there's going to be, besides Clark's panel, I bet there's going to be a bunch of other stuff. And I bet in the next year, they'll start having it on our national website. Here's content curated for different parts of speech. Are you teaching interpersonal? Are you teaching health comm? Are you teaching what?
Do you have a sense about how much better some cameras, some phones are?
Right now the resolution on the phones is pretty good. I think that the only thing that holds you back is maybe the connection that you have, because then the video might get pixelated. But every phone that's being produced today is being produced with VR in mind. So Samsung's new one and Apple's new one for sure are all about VR and being ready for that and that resolution.
$230.
How do you like it?
Buy an $800 phone?
I think the
Is that what is that?
It's Motorola.
Yeah.
Motorola, yeah, it's made for VR too. They all are.
Yes, but what I think is that some of the newer or more expensive phones have more 4K kind of screens or more pixels per inch and that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's probably the main thing is just the video processing. But this is not a thing where you're going to get less quality going forward. I think you're just going to get more. The hype right now is pretty high for this, and the phone companies are trying to match that. And again, this is the way in for students right now. I think a campus could have a type of the more expensive ones for students to try out in the library. There's actually North Harris has ordered some, and other campuses are already setting up. I think that there's probably going to be a system community.
Somebody ordered a Vive. We heard about it at...
I think it's North Harris. But I'll tell you that University of Oregon is checking it out from their school library to students to use.
One at a time.
What is this called?
This is called Google Cardboard.
Oh, just that. Okay.
Google Cardboard.
But I mean, does this device have a name? Like
it is Google Cardboard.
They usually call it virtual reality goggles.
Goggles.
Okay, that's what you're looking for. What it does.
Virtual reality goggles.
All right, I know that it's after time, and I will talk to you all afternoon. So I just want to let you know that if you need to be done and gone, I totally understand.
So inexpensive. I remember years ago we all came to school in the fall, and the professional development office, as it were, had purchased a bunch of Kindles.
Yeah.
Let's use the Kindles. Then 2 years later, approximately, came and there were the clickers.
True, true.
Let's use the clickers.
Yes,
I
and
don't see why we couldn't
Yeah.
do
And we have
this.
this
Now, our
technology
department's
grant.
been talking about doing a mini grant.
Yeah.
thank you very much, AR. I appreciate it.
For speech and carrying.
Thanks. It's like the movie theater. I have to have it back before you leave. Thanks so much.
Just think of foreign
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Good to meet you.
The jury's not out on the value of immersion.
Clark,
Teaching what it
Yeah.
has
he
to
also
learn a
teaches
language.
mathematics. These are all colleagues.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Unlike iPads, which the school will never buy again, probably. Okay, they've just they're done with buying iPads unless you have a reason for it. These you don't have to have the school buy them. You can, as a matter of having a class set, but the students can buy them themselves. This is not something that's too expensive.
It's trying to just make it into our mini grant.
Yeah.
Class set.
Yeah, mini grant.
I mean, how many of you went through school and the professor said, go and buy this supplement to my text, and you still had to pay another $25? We're not trying to outspend our students, let me say, but this is the cheapest thing I can think of. They already have the most expensive piece,
Even if they pay
their phone.
$15, it's still cheap.
I'm already thinking to go home to ask my kids to see if they want them.
They've already got
They
it.
probably know
No, they
about
don't
it.
have
but
them.
you-
They have, maybe they've seen it, but they don't have them. I know if they have them.
Not many people have them.
No.
They come with some phones.
Yeah.
I don't, or
They come with some video games.
The New York Times sent out 2 million of these for free.
Really?
2
How do
million
they
for
pick their,
free.
Recipients.
I think that they were doing presentations around the country. So, for instance, we had the New York Times guy come last year, and then he was back in the system during in-service this year, I think, for some campuses. And when he came to our campus, he already had some freebies, and I know that one of our government professors has one, or got one sent to her. And I think at some point they were saying, we want people to have these so they can consume this content. There's a lot of them going out there. You do need the button, though. Tomball, their student success group bought a bunch of cheapies, kind of like the stuff that they hand out, the freebie stuff that they do with our logo on it. But it's a plastic thing that kind of accordions like this and folds up, and you can slip your phone in it, and it's got the lenses, but you can't really see as well, and there's no button in it, so it doesn't give a good impression of the technology like this can. Right, so I'd be careful about what I got. Yes, Walmart sells virtual reality viewers that you can put any phone in and so on. I'm just not sure. Yeah, my teacher salary doesn't let me try out every single thing that's out there. Okay, so I like these. They work good. If you find one that works great for you too, that can be bought at Walmart. Students are great for that, but they don't mind ordering stuff online. That's not something that's really a prohibitive factor, right? So I'm not worried about that either.
Our speech department, we're talking about doing
Should I
that
announce
this year.
next week's program?
If any of you belong to a department that has regular meetings and would like me to come talk about it to more people who could not be here, I would be happy to come and do that.
I'm surprised more people from my division didn't come because they're big on technology.
Well, here's what I suggest. We'll, of course, put this as soon as possible up on the CAC website.
Sure.
But if you can send me however many you want, but 2, 3 links or one key link.
Okay, to
One key, you'll have to send you
content, you mean?
Yeah.
Sure.
And when we send out the CAC announcement next Monday,
Yeah.
next week, we can put that in there.
Right.
And then everyone will have it, and they'll have it fast.
a link like to the 360.
Yeah.
The very
We can
first
put a little
link.
note.
Like the one that the Van Gogh,
Yeah.
that'll
Yeah.
get everybody.
Van Gogh will get
Sure.
That'll be
Yeah.
really
Story
cool.
night.
So we can say,
Surely.
if you missed the CAC, it'll be up on the website
Uh-huh.
as soon as possible.
Yes.
In the meantime.
If you have one of these viewers, try it out. Sure.
What
you
you
want.
missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
is
Okay.
Because this is cutting edge,
Well,
to say the least.
I think
When-
Harvey has messed up everybody's schedule. I'm
Yeah.
sure more people from my division.
when we presented this at the International Ed Conference in April, a Fulbright scholar from Rice came and saw the Cuba presentation that we did, and we thought, gosh, that's a really narrow subject for the International Ed Conference, Cuba. How much can we really get? Can you have that many sessions? But I looked and I found 2